Talk Radio Europe.
Life Stories with Ian Rutter.
Today for Life Stories, my guest is Jeremy Ferguson, a financial planning and investment consultant and racing car driver who lives in Marbella and works in Sotogrande. Jeremy, thank you very much for being my guest today.
No, thank you for having me.
Jeremy, two quite different strands to your career. So let's start first, if we may, with the financial planning side of what you do here. Tell me a little bit about the work that you do here in Spain.
Now I work with a company called Spectrum IFA Group. I'm one of about 60 people they have around Europe. And I look after... My main clients are retired or semi-retired British expats. So I make sure that their financial affairs are all in order, really, to sit comfortably here in Spain. So it's a myriad of sins in that sense. So we look at the tax position for them, make sure their pensions are all as they should be. Look at trying to get their UK pensions across to them properly, investments, and then make sure their will's in place, what they want to do with their monies in the event of their demise for their children, etc. So it's a very general thing that we do. And I'm the man that prods them, really, and makes people think, stop playing golf and drinking wine and say, right, okay, we need to make sure everything's in order here.
Exactly. Is it a tricky environment? Because I'm assuming there are lots of different circumstances. Some people who base themselves here half the year, some people who live here permanently. I mean, what are the main criteria and what are the main hurdles that people have to cross when they are thinking about moving to Spain as far as financial planning is concerned?
It's a bit of a poison chalice in a sense, because you've got two things. The first thing is the lack of trust that people have towards people like myself, which has come from years of people not doing the right thing on the coast. So it's really the first thing is to get to know people. And then, with regards to what you're asking, it's a difficult one. Over the years, so many people live here more than half the year and say they don't. They live somewhere else, or they like to call themselves financial swallows. And really what's happened over the last 10 years probably is that's all changed massively. So what I pride myself saying to people, look, let's just do things properly. You're clearly living here in Spain. Let's get your residencia sorted. Let's get you filing tax returns, and I'll show you that actually it's not that bad a place to live with regards to those things, particularly when people are retired or semi-retired. Yeah.
Now you say it's changed dramatically over the last 10 years. In what way have regulations become tighter? In what way has it changed?
Yeah, I mean, just the most basic one, if you like, that people are probably fairly familiar with is what they call common reporting standards. So that's where all of the world really have got together and said that, we'll tell everyone, each other, what people have got and where it is. So, 20 plus years ago, people could have a Swiss bank account with a number, not even a name associated with the account. Nowadays, if you've got a Swiss bank account, the Swiss will tell authorities, where the money is and how much is there. So I'm sure lots of people have had these questions from the bank, and it's very difficult now to do anything other than be on the radar, is my expression. Yeah.
And now, one topic that I tend to steer clear of when we're having these chats is Brexit. What are the potential implications? Are people panicking about Brexit? Are they worried about what might happen with their financial planning if and when the UK does leave the European Union?
Yeah, there's a lot of scaremongering going on, and there's a massive amount of lack of knowledge. I've done numerous events where I'm always asked about this, and I've had the British consulate help me do the events and be there to answer questions. But the questions they're asked, they don't know the answers to. So there's so many unknown things. So my view and what I say to people is, look, it's a simple thing. If you're living here and you're worried about Brexit, it's a relatively easy procedure to get your residency. We had loads of people getting residency when the previous deadline was looming. Obviously, we've had the extension, so people have calmed down a bit. But, for me, I look at things simply because there are so many unknowns. But what do I know? I know that I go to my local paddle club and play paddle with people who are Swiss, who are Russians, who are Canadians, who are Americans. None of them are European. And they all live here quite happily. They have to go through a few more bits of paperwork to do it. but they're all living here. So I just say to people, look, rather than worrying about Brexit, let's look at what we do know and deal with the known. And that's something we can all deal with and then relax, rather than the worries about the unknown. But what good will that do?
Yeah, it's a very tricky situation. I'm thinking, I suppose, from a taxation point of view. And I don't suppose it's very clear. But if someone is paying tax here, are they post-Brexit? Are they likely to also be asked to pay tax in the UK as well, or will that reciprocal arrangement still exist?
I think the tax arrangements will stay in place. There's not been too much information about that, but the DTA doesn't seem to be under threat. So, from that point of view, I don't think anything will change. Again, who am I to say? Really, is what I say to people. But certainly, if you're paying tax here and you're not living in the UK, there will be no tax due in the UK. Really, it's where you're earning your money and where you live.
Yeah. Jeremy, I ask all of my guests to choose 6 pieces of music that best represent periods in their life stories. Music that evokes a strong memory, perhaps, or marks a significant moment in their lives. What would be your first piece of music, and why have you chosen this?
It's Genesis, Turn It On Again, and it's really very simple. It was the first record I ever bought, so it's the first single I purchased as I think I was a 12-year-old boy. So simple, and it's always been one of my favourites.
Jeremy Ferguson is my guest today, sharing his life story. Jeremy is a taxation, financial planning and investment consultant who lives in Marbella and works in Sotogrande. Jeremy also has, I suppose, a second string to his career, or certainly a lifelong passion. So Jeremy, tell me a little bit about racing. How did you get involved, and what type of racing do you do?
Right, so a lifelong story, really. I started I went on a summer camp when I was a young lad. My parents wanted me out of the house for the summer holidays, and it was a karting holiday. So we went to a place in Oxford and camped there on an old airfield, and basically drove go-karts around a circuit they'd made every day. I'd always liked racing when I was a child. Scale Electrics had started it, but I found I was actually quite good at this as a result of having had a go. So when I got enough money together, when I, part-time jobs, etc., I bought a go-kart, or a kart, as they like to be called, and I started racing as a young kid, and that then progressed.
So progressed.
When I was
progressed to what? Were you? I mean, progressed from karting to rally driving or circuit racing. What sort of racing were you doing?
Yeah, so I've always done circuit racing. So I progressed into what they call single-seaters. So it would be the first step on the ladder to Formula One, which most people would be familiar with. So they're small. They're like a mini Formula One car, very small single-seater, very fast and nimble. So myself and my brother, when I was 17, coming on to 18, got my first job. We both went to the bank and we borrowed money to buy a Ford Fiesta XR2, was the actual application on. But the reality is we clubbed together with those monies and went out and bought a racing car that did actually have a Ford engine in it, so we didn't feel that misleading. And we went to I used to ride my push bike around industrial estates at the weekends and in my holidays with my portfolio, door knocking, trying to raise sponsorship so I could go and race these things, which I did at that age. We raised quite a lot of money. And I went off with my brother and we did alternate races because we couldn't afford to do the whole season together. So he did one race, and then the next round of the championship I would do it, and he would mechanic for me and I would mechanic for him. So that's how we started.
Yeah, and how successful did you become?
Yeah, I won. It was called the BRSCC, which is the British Racing and Sports Car Club. I won their Golden Jubilee prize, which was some money and a trophy, as being one of the UK's most hopeful up-and-coming drivers. I got a contract to become what they call a works driver with a Formula Ford manufacturer. So I did that, and then we were quite good, and I went off to race in Portugal when we got some sponsorship, and then I had a big accident, basically. So that stopped me racing for a bit, mainly because of injury. I did manage to come back quite quickly, but then I realised at that point with sponsors, I needed to get to Formula 3, which was my next step. I needed to find £150,000, and that was in the early 90s. It was a huge amount of money, and we just couldn't raise it. And most of the kids around me that were getting up the ladder had parental wealth, or typically it was parental wealth that got them there. It's no different now. So at that point, I decided I needed to take a career a bit more seriously. And if I could earn money, I could probably fund my own racing, not at a massively high level, but, as a result of which I've managed to race ever since. I've never missed a season. And I've raced pretty much, I wouldn't say all over the world, but all over Europe. And I'm still active now, which is great. So.
Was that a difficult moment for you? Obviously being involved in a serious accident and having an injury that halted a potential career. Was there that moment when you suddenly realised that I'm probably not going to be able to do this as a career, and then having to adjust the mindset to accept that you were going to have to do something else?
Not really. I think I was always a realist. My father was involved in motor racing many moons ago, and he was always very anti me doing it. One, because of the danger, but two, because he'd seen people sort of ruin their lives. It's a form of addiction, and he'd seen people end up almost penniless and without a real job as a result of thinking, they were going to be the next Nigel Mansell. So I always had my feet on the ground with that regard. So I was training to be an actuary in the background. So that got me involved in the financial world. So yeah, not really. I think I was always of the kin that, yes, it's a dream, but I think it was a realistic one that I thought, the chances of it happening are quite slim.
Mm. And your brother, did he go on, or did he stop at the same time?
No,
as
he stopped. He stopped. Blimey, we've been racing together for a few years, and he got work transfer to America. So he stopped and went off to America for 4 years. And then when he came back, he started his own business. So he just didn't have the money to race. I was fortunate enough to be employed and have a good job. And I had some good, faithful sponsors that were helping me as well. So it was a combination of sort of personal funds and sponsorship money. I managed to continue to race.
Yeah. Time for your second piece of music, Jeremy. What have you chosen for your second piece, and why this piece?
Okay, so, I mean, this is it involved with the racing. So it's Marillion Cayley. My first kart win, or go-kart, when I was a young lad, I put this on the car on the way home when I was driving back from the race meeting. So again, it's a very fond memory for me.
Life Stories.
Talk Radio Europe.
You found peace of mind in this country. You will also find this peace in your home in Spain, thanks to Naturgy Super Pack. Because the Naturgy Super Pack provides electricity and urgent repairs of appliances and air conditioning systems at a fixed rate, all from €51 per month. Call 900 64 9046 or visit naturgy.es.
Hi, Kit Hogg here. When we're not on the radio, my wife Penny and I run Arbolista, specialists in tree and palm care on the Costa del Sol. Tree surgeons, experts in decorative and remedial pruning and restricted area felling. We're also palmeros, cleaning, fumigating and maintaining your palms. Arbolista, here in Spain since 1998. Contact us on 600 260 534 or on spaintree.com.
If you have a job to fill, or if you're looking for a job, check out the Job Spot on the TRE website, tre.radio. To list a vacancy, just send an email to jobs@tre.radio with all the relevant details, and your listing will be posted on the TRE Job Spot for 1 month free of charge. If you're looking for work, check out the vacancies by clicking on the Job Spot tab at tre.radio. Talk Radio Europe, supporting the community.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain. Life Stories with Ian Rutter.
You're listening to Life Stories, and my guest is Jeremy Ferguson, a financial and investment advisor and a racing car driver who lives in Marbella. So, Jeremy, your career, it's difficult to say career as a racing driver because you were a realist as far as that was concerned. You pursued another career in parallel. How did you get started in that? And did you have an overall career plan? Did you know what you wanted to be from an early age, apart from a racing driver?
Yeah, I was quite a mathematician at school, so you could almost argue a bit nerdy, which was strange considering I raced cars at the same time. So I left school as quickly as I could, and I went to work for a company called Eagle Star in Cheltenham because I was a Stroud boy. And their head office offered a trainee actuarial positions for, if you like, people that didn't want to go to university. So I started out, and I wanted to be an actuary. So that's the mathematical side of insurance companies. I found it interesting. But after 2.5 years of doing that, the chief actuary, who was effectively the big boss, called me and said, "Jeremy, this isn't for you. I think you know that." And he said, "I just watched you for the last couple of years in the office. I think you're a salesman. So I'm transferring you downstairs to work for the sales division." And I think it was that or get rid of me. So I took it on the chin. I went downstairs to the sales department. They called them broker consultants. So these were guys that represented Eagle Star and ran around looking after brokerages who sold Eagle Star. And I ended up just being a tea boy and taking the reps' cars to the car wash to wash them. And I just felt this was ridiculous. You know, it wasn't a trainee sales position. It was just a tea boy. So my brother worked for a big insurance company. I rang him and he said, "Look, I know someone that might be interested." So I moved to a company called London and Manchester in a proper role in Bristol. And that's really what I've done ever since. So a broker consultant is someone that will look after insurance brokerages for the company they represent. So a sales rep, basically.
And were you happy with? I mean, obviously, as someone who had mathematical aptitude, were you happy moving into that sales environment? Did you feel that suddenly fitted you better?
Yeah, I actually felt it was what I was born to do. I think it stems from the fact I'm the youngest of 3 boys. So as a child, sort of dad had elder brother, mum had middle brother, and I was always selling myself to get attention. So I think it stemmed from that. I find it, I love it. I find it really interesting. And once I got involved in it, I was successful. You were judged on the new business levels you brought in, and that was great. So very quickly, I ended up as a sales manager, and then they moved me to the London office. So at 26, I think I was the youngest sales manager by 10 years. That was an interesting time in my life, looking after people that were a lot older than me and then reporting to me. Having to manage them was quite interesting. But no, from that point of view, it was the mathematical background gave me a fascinating understanding of how the products work and enables me to sell, if you like, on a technical basis for people that do want to know the nuts and bolts of what it is they're investing in.
Yeah. And presumably at the same time, you were still pursuing your love of racing, financed by your salary.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing was you got a company car as well. So, you know, I could stick a tow hitch on it and a trailer and then put my racing car on the trailer. So that really helped. So at that period of my life, I basically set my own team up and ran the car from the garage at the bottom of my garden. And so, yeah, I was to say I was working 24 hours a day is probably the truth, because after I'd finished work, I'd come home and prep the car ready for the next race meeting. Until the early hours of the morning, because they take a lot of time to do that. Yeah.
And what was family life like then, if you were working that many hours a day?
I'd married and I had two young boys around that time. So, yeah, I mean, I actually look back and I wonder where I found all the time. And everyone used to say to me, "Where do you get all the time?" I just did it. To me, it just was, every day I got up and went to work very early and worked long hours and then came home and did what I did and still seemed to have a lot of time with the children, etc. So, yeah.
So your family, I mean, parents and wife, were they supportive?
Understanding.
Yes.
It was. I always said, it was motor racing was so important to me. I don't think anyone dare question whether it was a choice of doing it or not.
Yeah. Time for your third piece of music, Jeremy. What have you chosen for your third piece, and why did you choose this?
Yeah, I spent. I don't. We've not talked about that period yet, but I spent an awful lot of time. I moved on to another job. I spent an awful lot of time away on long business trips, and I always used to play Chris Rea driving home for Christmas when I was coming back home from the airport, regardless of the time of year. But again, it was a song that really, maybe I was looking forward to getting home and seeing everyone.
Just the same. Top to toe in tailbacks. Oh, I got red lights all around.
My guest this week is Jeremy Ferguson, a taxation and financial planning consultant who lives in Marbella and works in Sotogrande. So, Jeremy, you touched on it there that you did travel widely in your career. And what was it that first brought you to Spain?
Work. It was the company I was working with took me to different places all over the world, and we were in what we call the offshore world. So our clients were investing in offshore policies. And in 1999, I went to a board meeting, and as a company, we decided that we thought that world would change, which we were proven right over the years. And we wanted to develop business in Europe. So it's a strange story, but basically I was dealing with a client in Israel, and they wanted their lawyers to give it the okay, what we were discussing. And they asked if I would go and see their lawyers. I said, yes, where are they? And they said, oh, they're in Gibraltar. I had never been to Spain in my life before that. So I couldn't get a flight to Gibraltar, so I flew to Marbella and drove down the coast. And that trip was it for me. I mean, quite literally, I spent one night in Sota Grande and then a day in Gibraltar. And when I got back, I flew over to Ireland and spoke to the directors and said, I think we could build a business in Spain for expatriates. And that's what brought me here.
So you say develop a business down in Spain. You designed a product aimed at expats. So describe this product a little bit. What were you trying to achieve?
What happened was we commissioned the University of Madrid through the University of Dublin to do some market research for us. And what we found is that people that were living here were pretending they weren't living here from a tax point of view. And when we spoke to lots of people, we found out that there were no product offerings that were in English that people could understand, but were also within the Spanish fiscal system, i.e. paid tax in Spain. So we developed an insurance product that complies with Spanish law that a client here can buy. It's actually a Spanish contract and everything's done in Spanish, but we translated it all into English for the clients and everything they dealt with was in English. And then it was an investment product, so they could put their savings into this. It would grow with no taxes paid each year, but when they wanted to take some money, some profit, we would work the tax out and pay it to the Spanish taxman on their behalf. And then with that, it had opportunities to leave the money to beneficiaries for inheritance tax, etc. So the product I was the first one to do it, really, since it's been replicated. But that's what we did. So it was difficult to start with because very few people had ever been offered this sort of thing. And I needed brokers to sell it. And there were only 2 regulated brokers here in Spain that I wanted to deal with. So it was a slow start, but from that it became quite successful.
And as you say, it was this was in 2000, and there were probably many people who were under the radar, were not paying tax here, were doing other things to avoid paying the tax that maybe they should have done. So was it very difficult to persuade people to adopt this product and become legitimate, for want of a better word?
Yes, it was. People were reluctant because, they could buy a product in the Isle of Man that was the same sort of product but didn't pay tax anywhere. So, I was actually encouraging people from day one to say, look, you are actually living here full time. Your children are at school in the local school or your dog's in the kitchen. This is clearly your residence. And this is the way to do it properly. So yeah, it took a while. I think from 2000 really to 2002, I reverse commuted to make sure this would work, and then eventually I said, this is going to be successful, and moved the family down here.
So the family, yes, you did move them over. How did they take the move? Were they quite happy to come over here?
The children didn't really have a say in it. No one really had a say in it. I was such a forceful character. I was like, we're going to do this. I think the first 3 months were hell. My children, I actually managed to get them into school in Gibraltar because I wanted them to be taught in Gibraltar and English. And I'd looked at various schools, and that was a decision I made. So I managed to pay for them to go to the school in Gibraltar. But the first 3 months, pretty much every day I came home from work, my children were crying. There was no grass in the playground. They didn't know anyone. It was all strange. And the commute to school included border crossing every day and things. So it wasn't easy, and then a rented house, having sold our lovely home in the UK, all those things that everyone, I think, goes through. But to be honest, we never looked back after that. First summer was done. It was fantastic. Now,
you say you never look back. Your first marriage ended in divorce. Was that due to a move to Spain? Did that put any strain on that marriage, or what happened there?
I think I was too involved in myself and work, I just think we grew apart really, and I do think that the expat lifestyle didn't help. I was either working or playing paddle or off racing or travelling. So I think probably the biggest thing was the travel.
Yeah. Time for your fourth piece of music, Jeremy. What have you chosen for your fourth piece, and why this one?
I'm going to sound boring now, but this is Fleetwood Mac the Chain, simply because I loved Formula One as a child, and that was the theme tune for the Grand Prix programme. So.
Life Stories. TRE.
Talk Radio Europe.
Ah, excellent, Wrench. Put your bonnet to his right use. Chaos is come again.
Oh, hello. I'm from Linea Directa. I'm here to give you a tow.
Ah, better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. For car owners who like things loud and clear without all the performance, our car insurance starts from just €194. Call Linea Directa on 902 123 616. That's 902 123 616. T's and C's apply.
Spence Clark & Co. is a firm of chartered accountants established over 32 years ago in Spain. We're regulated by the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, and also fully qualified in Spain and a member of the most important Spanish tax and accounting institutes. We pride ourselves in combining old-fashioned standards of professional service with up-to-date, ethically imaginative tax planning and legal advice. Contact us on 952 822 943 or visit us at spenceclark.com. That's 952 822 943. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to Talk Radio Europe.
Life Stories with Ian Rutter.
Jeremy Ferguson is my guest today, sharing his life story. Jeremy's time is divided between his role as a financial and investment consultant and a racing car driver. So Jeremy, the expat life was not easy. It's not always easy for everybody, but trying to educate your children in Gibraltar and that difficulty for your children to settle in, and then a subsequent divorce. So how has your life and the lives of your family evolved as a result of your move over here?
I think, to concentrate on the children, really, and the way that their upbringing. So they moved here when they were quite young. We initially lived in Solo Grande, and they had to commute into Gibraltar. So they were educated, if you like, in an English environment. We then actually moved. We bought a house in Gibraltar and all moved into Gibraltar in 2012. The education they got was fantastic. They became, I would say, bilingual, but not fantastically bilingual. Not as if they'd been in a Spanish school, maybe. But they became very accustomed to the lifestyle here. They grew up in an environment that I really enjoyed. I mean, I remember when they were young, it was foreign to us. Having lived in England, you didn't really take your children out for dinner in the evenings. If someone invited you for a dinner party, it was just you, and you had to get a babysitter. Where, bringing them up here, everything involved your children. They were a considered part of you. It was a unit. So, I'm surprised my kids ended up with any hair, because in every restaurant, the waiters would be rubbing their head as they walked past, just being nice to them. So I found, people would invite you around for dinner or barbecue. It was always you were invited as a family. So that upbringing gave them a fantastic way to be, in the sense they're very, very comfortable in adult company. I always found it very strange when my boys were probably 16, 17, they would be getting ready to go out and say, "Where are you going tonight?" And they'd say, "Oh, we're going to the beach for dinner." Whereas, when they went back to the UK, their mates would be going to the pub to get drunk. It was a very different social upbringing that they became used to. So that was good. And then university beckoned for both of them. So my oldest son went to Bournemouth to do sports something, which he dropped out of, and he's now married a girl from Bournemouth and lives in the UK and works for an insurance company. And my other son went to York to study business accounting and finance, and he's now just starting to do a doctorate. So he will become a Dr. Ferguson in a few years. But again, they've both found it tough to readjust to life in the UK.
Yes, I was going to say, were they at school here for all their school life, or did they go back to the UK before they went to university?
My eldest son was here until he was about 16. So effectively, he did his A-levels at school in the UK, at a sports college. Okay. So he did sports psychology and physical training as like the equivalent of A-levels, which got him into the university. So he did. My youngest son stayed here and did his A-levels in Gibraltar, and then went straight from here to York University. So
yeah, and as you say, they found it quite tricky to adjust. Do you think they will now base themselves in the UK, or is there the possibility that they will come back? Do they feel that Spain and southern Spain and Gibraltar is their home? Do they feel that connection strongly?
No, I don't think so. My eldest son, his wife rules the roost, so she's from Bournemouth. I don't think she'll leave Bournemouth ever. That's a bit harsh, but I think, so he seems to really like it there. And my youngest son, he's at York. He'll be in Manchester doing his doctorate. He seems to like it there. So I don't think so, because it's very hard to get, a job that pays well here, because I think we know that the pay gap is huge between here and the UK. And, the youth of today, things are so expensive, getting on the property ladder, etc. There's huge pressure on them to earn, good levels of income just to get by, really.
Yeah. And I suppose then how has that affected you as your family has grown up? And have obviously fled your nest down in southern Spain. Have there been any moments where you've thought, perhaps it's time for me to go back to the UK? Or are you so embedded now in Spain from a business and residential point of view?
No, I've never thought I'd go back, to be honest. I mean, you can never say never, and obviously I'm dealing with clients every day who are expatriates, and, you can never say never. Health issues can occur, or something untoward can happen that makes you want to go back. But genuinely, I'm very settled here. I've been here a long time. My business is here, so I have to be here for my business.
And you've remarried, so your family life now is very much here as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So my new wife has been here since she was 16. So she's from Glasgow. She's, very into the Spanish way of life. So yeah, as I say, I just don't see going back. Every time I have a romantic notion and get quite excited when I'm due for a few days back in the UK. I'm looking forward to going to the pub and having a pint of ale, pie and a pint, etc. What I find is every time I get back, within 2 days, I want to come here again. Yeah. So I see it as a foreign country now. When I go back to the UK, things are so different. I mean, the most basic of which is I get freaked out when I have to drive on the wrong side of the road again.
Yes, I know that feeling. Time for your fifth piece of music, Jeremy. What have you chosen for your fifth piece?
This is for my second marriage. It's Michael Bublé. I Just Haven't Met You Yet.
I might have to wait, I'll never give up. I guess it's half timing and the other half's luck. Wherever you are, whenever it's right, you'll come out of nowhere and into my life. And I know that we can be so amazing. And baby, your love is gonna change me. And now I can see every possibility. Somehow I know that it'll all turn out. You'll make me work so we can work to work it out. And I promise you, kid, I'll give so much more than I get. I just haven't met you yet. They say all's fair in love and war, but I won't need to fight it. We'll get it right. We'll be united. And I know that we can be so amazing. And being in your life is gonna change me. And now I can see every single possibility. And someday I know it'll all turn out. And I'll work to work it out. Promise you, kid, I'll give more than I get, than I get, than I get, than I get. Oh, you know it'll all turn out. And you'll make me work so we can work to work it out. And I promise you can to give so much more than I get. Yeah, I just haven't met you yet. I just haven't met you yet. Oh, I promise you can to give so much more than I get. I just haven't met you yet. Someday, yeah, I just haven't met you yet.
Jeremy Ferguson is my guest, sharing his life story. Jeremy lived in Marbella and is a financial and taxation advisor and a racing car driver. So, Jeremy, you touched briefly on it there, what it is about Spain, particularly the Costa del Sol, which is where you've made your home. What is it about the part of the world in which you live that you love so much? What is the connection?
For me, I think the connection is just I like the lifestyle. I like the longer days, the lighter evenings, the warmer weather, the beach, the food. So it really is. I mean, it sounds a bit of a standard answer, really, but I love everything about Spain that I think everyone else loves that comes here.
And do you, we sort of mentioned your sons probably basing themselves in the UK. Do you feel... I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel European? Do you still feel British? Do you feel more Spanish than British? Where do your allegiances lie? Where do you feel you belong?
I feel European. So probably get a deluge of people who are Brexiteers, etc. But for me, I've always loved the European thing. It's enabled me to be here. It enabled me to build a business over the last 25 years. It enables me to do what I'm doing now, effectively being the European thing. So I see myself as a European. I've been away from the UK really for pretty much half my life. So I'm British. I'm British born and bred. I'm proud of that. I drive a little Mini around, an old Mini that I've had restored with a Union Jack on the roof, so I'm not ashamed. I love the European. I think it was a fantastic idea. I think maybe that the micro meddling of politics, etc., probably ruined what started out to be a great thing.
And does the future worry you from that perspective? This suddenly finding yourself with a passport of a country that wants to divorce itself from that ideal, does that worry you?
Very much so, yeah. I think it saddens me probably more than worries me. I think there's an element of, are we going to alienate ourselves from the rest of Europe? It is a club that we joined and now we don't want to be a member anymore. So the unknown is definitely, I mean, if you actually think about the amount of things that we do under European legislation, it's quite freaky when you think that's all got to be renegotiated. So, just you take your passport, your driving license, crossing borders, doing business, all of the things that we've taken for granted pretty much all our lives.
Yeah.
How will that change?
Exactly. So, I mean, it's always a difficult question, but I mean, your immediate future, do you have plans? Are you looking to, you've got another branch of your career now. Are you looking to increase your racing driving again? Are you looking just towards working away towards a nice retirement? What are your plans for the future?
It's certainly not the retirement word. That scares me to death. I've got too much energy. So for the future, my business I love. Just work's a pleasure for me. I've got a good work-life balance living here. The company I work with, they are regulated here in Spain. So it's a Spanish company. I'm not working for a company from the UK that's maybe passporting their services in. So I have no threat to my business from the Brexit thing. I just more of the same, really. I'm still racing. I was racing 2 weeks ago. I'm now racing, they're called Le Mans prototypes. So if you see that, you can imagine the big Audis you see at Le Mans, the closed cockpit sports cars. I'm racing one of those now. The racing will continue, not as frequently. The championship we do, and we're hoping to do next year, is only 6 rounds because the races are either 4 or 6 hours. And
the racing's
there.
Does that still take you around the world, or is it fairly local?
Around Europe, yeah. So fairly. I mean, I was in Italy 2 weeks ago. If we look at the championship, it's sort of France, Italy, UK, Spain, Portugal. So European, really.
Yeah. And you mentioned there that the company you're working for now is a Spanish company. Are you fluent in Spanish?
No.
So what's it been like working for a Spanish company in that, under those circumstances?
I think basically it's around the big issue here is consumer protection. So all of our clients are English speaking. So the language barrier that I have, I do speak Spanish, but not very well, is not there really for the business perspective. But it's very important from a consumer protection point of view. So we're regulated in Spain. The advice we give is with Spanish compliant products, etc. So if a client felt misdone with us, there's recourse through the Spanish legal system that they can pursue. So I think that's very important from a consumer protection point of view for people.
Yeah. Jeremy, where can people find out more about your business and the work that you do, just in case they do want some advice? How can they get in touch?
WhatsApp's always a good one. So via my WhatsApp, my phone number, which is 670-216-229, or alternatively go to the website, which is spectrum-ifa.com. And if you go to advisors, you'll find me under the Costa del Sol, because we're throughout Europe, so you need to go to the Spanish page and then Costa del Sol, and you'll see me there, and you can click on there and email me from that.
Brilliant. Okay. Your final piece of music, Jeremy, what's your final piece and why have you chosen this?
Okay, so this is a sentimental one for me. My mother sadly passed away in February just gone. She loved Gilbert O'Sullivan, and I have many memories as a kid during the summer holidays listening to her doing the cleaning to Matrimony.
Jeremy Ferguson, thank you so much for being my guest and for sharing your life story.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
I've no wish to hurry you, love, but have you seen the time? It's 10:15 and we're supposed to be there at 9. I don't think the registrar will be very pleased when we show up an hour late like two frozen peas. Both now facing for the first time, presently and past, something that begins with them and ends in a lass. More than a complete disaster, even from the start. What could it be? It's matrimony. I know how you've dreamt about being walked down the aisle, but think of the money we'll save and you'll see it's worthwhile. It won't please our mums and dads, but they don't even know. Besides, if they did, what's the bet? They wouldn't even go. You and me are all that matters, disregard the rest. Trust your soon-to-be old man, he knows what is best. Very shortly now there's gonna be an answer from you, then one from me. That's matrimony. Oh, I'm truly grateful for the little things in life that have made me so glad. Every other hour that I spend with you is not in the least bit sad. Quite the opposite, in fact, and if you don't believe me, here's the proof.
If you would like to be a guest on Life Stories and chat to me about your life here in Spain, then I would be delighted to hear from you. Simply get in touch via the website www.tre.radio or through our Facebook page, Talk Radio Europe Official.